Hi, my name is KathyLaDonna, and this is Soul in Vibration. This video is about the full moon in Sag. In this video, there's 5 things that I would like to share with you about the full moon in Sag. And when it comes to this video is part 1. Part 2 is available on Patreon, where I go deeper into the sun, moon, rising placements, pulled cards, and see what channeled messages come through. But when it comes to this full moon in Sag, and of the 5 things I want to share with you, the first thing is the numerology. And when I get into the numerology, I first like to jump into the fact that we are in a 9 universal year. And you get the number 9 by adding all the numbers within the year. If you add, 2025 together, you get the number 9 frequency. And with us being in a 9 universal year, a 9 year reflects major endings and beginnings. So this is a year between this year and next year, you'll see how your life changed in a major way. And with us being in a 9 universal year, reflecting major endings, and these endings are like generational endings. If it's, say, a relationship coming to an end, it's a friendship or a relationship that has been a part of your life for, say, maybe the past 10 years off and on. If it's a career change, it's something that you've been in this career for, the past 10 years or more. Whatever is coming to an end is something that has been a part of your life for a long time. And in some cases, something can come to an end and evolve to the next level where an aspect of it dies, but, a new part there's a new part of it that presents itself. So with us being in the 6th month, the number 6 energy, June, has to do with family. It has to do with community. It has to do with responsibility. June energy is a social energy, and the number 6 energy is a social work type of energy. It reflects how we care for others, how we, care for our community and take care of each other. The number 6 energy also ties to the material realm, as it can reflect our definition of success. Based on material things. This is where we'll say, I'll become successful once I achieve this title, this status, I marry this mate, I buy this car, I live in this home, I live in this place, I'm a part of this social circle. So with our definition of success being tied to material things, it'll feel as though there's a carrot dangling in front of us, and no matter how close we get, it's like we could never get close enough. And that's the challenging aspect of June. So when it comes to, say, this full moon energy, I feel like some things are going to come up around our definition of success or the material things that we value, and also things around family. So big status issue for some pertaining to this full moon energy, whether there's a releasing of a status or there's a releasing of a status, even if it's to make space for a new one. But there's something around status, something around family, something around community. So the full moon is on the 11th of June, and the number 11 energy is a master number. Master number because the number 1 is repeated. So with the number 1 repeated, that number 1 energy is amplified. And with the number 1 energy being amplified, the number 1 could be an artistic genius. And that's because there's so many great ideas. But with the number 1 reflecting the ego, the identity, and the self, it's hard for us to see ourselves outside of ourselves unless we're standing in a mirror. And say mirrors didn't exist, we would see ourselves by the things that we own, by the people that we associate ourselves with. And with the number 11 energy, sometimes it could struggle because we have this great idea, but there's no validation that it's a good idea because there's no examples of that idea in front of us. So this is where sometimes we'll have a great idea, but we're afraid to take action on the idea. So instead, we freeze in place, and then we internalize like the emotions that we feel from not being bold or brave enough to take action. So when the number 11 is present, the number 11 could reflect turbulent energies. And I feel like it's turbulent energy because of the overflow of masculine energy of the number 1 being repeated and not having the proper outlet to express itself or to release itself, if that makes sense. So with the number 11 being a part of the full moon energy, some of the endings that can come about could feel turbulent in some ways. It's like it comes about in a turbulent way or leaves us feeling turbulent within ourselves after it takes place. And the energies in the day adds up and reduced to the number 8 vibration. And the number 8 is an energy that deals with systems and cycles. So with, say, this full moon taking place with the energies in the day adding up and reducing to the number 8 vibration, the number 8 is ruled by Saturn. So there's this strong emphasis around time pertaining to this full moon. There's something around time. Time comes up in the conversation, and something about the cycle and, the cycle that we've been on or the way we've been doing something. There's big emphasis pertaining to time. And this full moon is at 20 degrees, and the number 2 is a nurturing energy. The number 2 is a sensitive energy. So there's something about this full moon that could be very emotional, very sensitive. The second thing that I want to get into about this full moon is what happens when we have a full moon in Sag. So a full moon is when the sun and the moon oppose each other at the exact degree. And the sun and the moon are both at 20 degrees. The sun is at 20 degrees in Gemini, and the moon is at 20 degrees in Sagittarius. So whenever there's a full moon reflects an opposition in energy. There's a push and a pull. It's like a back and forth in energy. It's like the moon is the mother, the sun is the father. So a full moon would reflect a father and mother who are opposites. And opposites attract, because when you think of, say, Sagittarius and Gemini, they are opposites, but they're very similar because they exist on the same plane. So they exist on the same plane and they're pretty much the same, but the extreme opposites of each other. So whenever you see certain situations where there's opposites attract, it's because these opposites or they're extreme opposites of the same thing, which makes them the same. But to me, it's almost like an imbalance that causes them to be at extreme ends. And for me, whenever the moon is full, we always want to come to the center of the energy. It's like there's a level of compromise that needs to happen. And with a full moon in Sag energy, like the moon talks about what we need to be nurtured. The sun is our identity. So it's like bringing both of those together. Say like a new moon where the sun and the moon are together in the same sign. It's like the sun is the father, the moon is the mother. And when they're together, it's like they come and they create something new. But in this case, when they're far apart, there's some kind of shedding or cleansing that needs to happen while the whole tug of war is happening. So whenever there's a full moon in Sag, it reflects some kind of ending that can happen, say, collectively in the world. It could be something around, say, immigration, something around travel. And I say immigration and travel because Sag energy deals with long distance travel. It deals with diversity. So it could be something around immigration, something around diversity, something around travel. Sag energy also deals with higher education. So it could be something ends in our world around education, having to do with colleges. Something could end around philosophical beliefs, because whenever I think of Sag, I think of, philosophy, I think of religion, and maybe even spirituality to a certain extent. So something in our world comes to an end or evolves to the next level when it comes to that. The third thing that I want to get into is challenges that we might be dealing with around this full moon. And for me, when it comes to this full moon and the challenges that are coming up around it, it brings me to letting go. It's like when it comes to the things that we have to let go of around this full moon, it might be hard letting go of these things, because when I think of, say, Sag and how it's connected to the 9th house, and the 9th house is next to the 10th house, and those two houses are at the very top of our charts, I think of how unconsciously or consciously we might put a lot of power into what other people might think. Because when I think of the 10th house and the 11th house, I think of those houses in a position of, like, say, status, or feeling the pressure to keep up a certain status because everybody is looking at us. Where when I think of, like, say, 9th house, it's the feeling of what school did you graduate from? It's that kind of energy with Sag. Or I think of, like, say, the person that they're always traveling and maybe they like traveling, or the person that travels because that's their way of flexing. That's their way of saying, I'm important. I travel, I go places. I interact with different people. Either way, when I think of like, say, Sag energy, there's a level of status associated with that energy. And I think of like, say, certain certain colleges and universities. I think of certain beliefs and mindsets, and how, some people will have a hard time letting go of a belief or a mindset, even if it's proven wrong, only because the status associated with that belief, with that mindset. I think of when it comes to, say, most of the industries that govern our world, how all of them are gate kept to a certain extent, where even if like the ideas are outdated and they're no longer true, I could see how, those within the organization will pretend for things to still be relevant when really they're not, to gain or maintain some level of control. So I said all that to say, when I think of, say, Capricorn energy at the center of our chart having to do with the 10th house, and some people's chart might be tilted a little and it's not at the center, it's off to the side. 10th house is in the center, it's off to the side. When I think of, how traditionally we'll say the 10th house is at the top, right next to it. So I think of like, the organizations that have to do with education. And I think of how certain things might be outdated when it comes to the medical industry and their whole chart of like, say, food pyramid and how we should eat and what we should eat. And even say, how they heal us and, help, how they help those who are ill. It's like certain things might be outdated, or maybe not even outdated, but it was set up on a foundation, not even with the intention to help or heal in the first place. And it's being proven wrong. But those who are in the industry might have a hard time, like calling the BS to it, because it's like, if I call that this industry that I've spent all this years serving and gaining an education in, it's like if they lose their credential, then I lose mine too. So the issue that I feel, the challenges with this full moon, is that some things are falling apart. Like when we look at, say, Uranus and Taurus, and how, with Uranus and Taurus energy, how the foundation, the foundations are falling apart, and time for innovation. And innovation comes from rebelling, and how us, the people, are rebelling against a lot of the things that, were once foundational in our world. I could see how some people will defend the old way, and they're not really defending what's best for the collective. They're really defending their titles, their status. And it brings me back to, say, the month of June and the number 6, dealing with the material realm. And the energies in the day adds up or reduce a number 8 vibration that also ties to the material realm, dealing with authority, power, and control. So the challenges when it comes to this energy, for me, brings me to issues around authority, power, and control, and people afraid of losing power. And on a personal level, I'll think of the person who decides that they're going to discontinue their time at college because maybe they're not passing classes because they're truly not interested. They're not showing up, and it's just a waste of money at this point. And it's like the challenge is coming to the realization that, I'll never have this title, and neither did I really want this title, but I wanted to make a certain person proud. So I feel like the challenges for some of us might have to do with power and status, and the titles that we associate certain things with could be what comes up around this full moon energy. What's unexpected, though, when it comes to this full moon energy? To me, what's unexpected should be expected, in the sense that when change is ready to come in, there is nothing that one can do to stop that. For example, back to Uranus making its way through Taurus. It's near the end. So it's grand finale energy. And the whole structure that we've lived, the whole, everything that has structured society, it's falling apart. It's changing. Innovation has to come in. And for me, innovation comes in through rebelling. We have to come to the realization that what once was no longer works. And with all that, like, the changes are coming whether people want to accept them or not. And I think of those who are professionals who understand that the changes are happening no matter what. I feel like the smart ones will get on board and, you know, do the research and do the work and then start aligning themselves as one who can make proper changes when necessary. Like, I think of the person who might have a strong belief or see things a certain way, but they're able to be honest and say that, okay, I've observed my patients, I've observed my clients, I've observed myself, and I see that I was wrong about this. I feel like the person who's able to do that will gain so much trust and following, because they show that they're human and they show that they are not so stuck on their title, their status, to the point that they can't be wrong. To the point that they will defend a lie just in the name of protecting an image. So I feel unexpected change is coming in no matter what. Change is coming in no matter what. And I look at, say, how Saturn has moved into Aries and moved from Pisces, where things that were once hard for us to see, we're waking up to the truth. I feel like Saturn moving through Pisces for the past 2 years was such a big eye opener. Of course, certain things happen in our world, like the lockdown and things of that helped us to awaken. But when I think of the Saturn transit Pisces, I feel like that was such a silent eye opener, where certain things we're able to see so clearly to the point that we can't unsee it. There's no more pulling a wool over people's eyes. And then with Saturn moving into Aries, conjunct Neptune, is like, first Saturn helped us to see what we couldn't, help us to become even more aware of our intuition by slowing things down. And then in Aries, eventually, it's like it's the coach that'll help us to build the muscles. And like I mentioned in the Saturn and Aries video, it's like when Neo meets Morpheus, where before meeting Morpheus, Neo didn't know he was the one. And for me, with the unexpected energy, the changes that are happening in our world out of our control is forcing something new, whether those who want it or not. So it's either they can, you know, align themselves with those who are willing to admit they're wrong, those who are willing to question the status quo, regardless of how they'll look amongst their peers, who are all about truth. Because one thing with Sag energy for me is an energy that could reflect truth, that could reflect honesty. And, you know, I feel like the unexpected energy is that you can't stop the change that's coming. But the blessing is the fifth thing that I want to share. And the blessing for me around this full moon energy is that, you know, we're able to walk away from old structures or walk away from old, say, things that we would give our power to and see as authority. We're able to see that that thing is not my authority. Let's pause for a bit. I am proud of the services that I offer and excited to tell you about them. If it would be your first time booking with me, then I recommend the natal chart and numerology awareness coaching session. For a while, that was the only service I offered, along with the 30 minutes tarot reading, which is still available if you're interested. I noticed the pattern. At the end of the natal chart and numerology coaching sessions, some of you would ask me for a follow-up service options for additional clarity and guidance to assist you with whatever you're going through at the moment. I kept saying, I'll look into it. I don't know why it took me so long. Finally, I have created that option along with the service option to book a solar return chart reading for those of you who are strategic and like to plan ahead. Everything you need to know is within the description box below. Let's get back into the video. When it comes to the blessings with this full moon in Sag, like I think of like, say, when I think of Sag energy, I think of universities is a thing that crossed my mind with this energy. And then I think of how we're in the era of information, and being in the era of information kind of was problematic to this, say, you know, Sag energy having to do with university, because now people have access to knowledge. People have access to information. It's like at this point to not know it's a choice to be ignorant when it comes to certain things. And that could be a choice for some of us because we find comfort and not wanting to see or know certain things. But for me, being in the era of information, it's like we have access to so much information, where back in the day, only certain people with authority had the ability to publish and make certain information public, where now everybody has the ability to do so. The problem with that, with some, there's a bunch of noise, but you have to dig through, if you really want to find the truth, you could dig through all the fluff and all the fluff and all the noise and find some real truth. So when it comes to, say, publishing, publishing content, publishing information, something comes to an end with that. So I feel like with the blessings around this full moon energy, it feels as if something comes to an end with the old ways of doing things, and the gate kind of opens up to everyone. Even if it felt like it had opened up before, it opens up more, especially with this happening in a 9 universal year. And it feels like, to me, it's not something that the powers that be can control. If anything, they can control distractions to stop people from becoming aware of the opening of this open energy that's available to them that they can tap into. If anything, they distract people from becoming aware of this gate that's open, but they can't stop the gate from opening. So, for me, when it comes to the blessings with these energies, is like changes are coming, and we can align ourselves with what we want to align ourselves with based on the stories we're telling and the frequency that we're holding. They can't stop the changes that are coming. But the only thing they can stop is, stop you from being aware of it by creating distractions, so you're unaware of these changes. So I feel like when it comes to this full moon and Sag, certain things that we used to see as an authority over our world, where I think of how nowadays people don't believe nothing NASA said about going to the moon. People are feeling like that never happened, or this didn't happen and that didn't happen. And it's like these, organizations that govern over us, they're no longer having that power. And I feel like this full moon will reflect some major ending that's happening with these organizations. And within Sag, it might have to do with publishing, social media, religion, philosophy, travel. I mentioned all of that. But I feel like, like I said, gates open up with these endings. But what will happen instead is things like, say, the Diddy trial and different things that's happening in front of us that, if you're engaging in it and paying attention to it, it will consume you. It is meant to distract you, meant to take your attention away from certain things that are opening and available to you. Because like I said, they can't stop it. They can only stop you from recognizing that the opportunity is there. It was a pleasure sharing this message with you. This video is part 1. Part 2 is available on Patreon. I would love to hear from you before you go anywhere, and you could do so by dropping me an orange heart in the comment box below. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.